let's see if we can get some of our brothers and sisters back. See if we can get some of them back. Okay, now I don't think that the video gonna be stopping. I'm back at home now, so we got a little bit. We got some. We can use our reception and everything. So let me see here. Yeah, but I was telling you, brothers and sisters, you know what? We have laid in my extended family 8 people. We have had 8 funerals this year. So we need to be beards white. I was telling you about that joke that I was making with my cousins yesterday. I said, well, my eyes started getting bad, so I quit reading. And they just bust out laughing because I don't wear glasses. I don't wear glasses, but I can't see them little bitty words neither. So, what I was just saying is that we all growing older, you know. And God he taking more people out of this world now than ever before. And we gonna, I want to share some stuff with you. That's what I want to do. I want to share some stuff with you. You got hacked? Okay, I'll make sure I go on there and check it out. Shouts out to all of you brothers and sisters. Shouts out Wanda Tony, Tisha Ricks, Oliver Lyons, Yadon. Shouts out to you, Yadon. Ann Kersey. Shouts out to you, sister. Yeah, I'm grateful for all of you. Abigail, Yasharala, shouts out to you. Shouts out to you. And yeah, okay, Judah, we'll make sure we. I want to take a look at something. I want you to listen to what's going on. We're going to be reading out the Gospel of the Holy 12 now. Yeah, we're going to read now the Gospel of the Holy 12. And I want to open some. Here we go. Let's see. I should have went in. I should have went in my settings and shut that down. What? Go to. It says. Oh, I got some. I got some, but I can't use those little reading glasses because apparently my eyes, I had to have those bifocals at the bottom, so I had to go to an eye doctor, and I don't have insurance like that, you know. You know, you only disabled, you only get Medicare, and there are no benefits that come with that. You know, that's why I tell you about the teeth starting to decay. They don't have no choice but to continue to decay. I mean, surely it's a simple matter for the Most High to just say, poof, here's all the money you need to do whatever you need to do. But even if that were the case, I mean, can you repair the teeth that He gave you? I mean, you can repair them, but eventually they still gonna come to that same place as long as we keep living. But yeah, so I have to go to the eye doctor in order to get right, and those glasses are very expensive. Uh, so I just wing it, and I just thank the Most High for the day that He give me, and I do the best that I can with it, with the understanding that one day everything is gonna fall apart, and it's not a matter of whether it's gonna fall apart. It's a matter, or are you utilizing and maximizing everything while you're on the way to your body deteriorating. You see? Bless you, Michael Royster. We always appreciate that. But, you know, I tell people all the time, you know, grief is a part of life. And God keeps giving us funerals. He says it's better to be in the house of the mourning than it is to be in the house of feasting and festivities, because there the countenance is made saddened. And then the living will lay those things to their heart that one day that they have to die too. So sometimes the funeral is created for people that wouldn't otherwise come into places to where you could hear what the word says. So the Most High had to strategically do that. And some families need to be brought up under the umbrella of the word or being brought face to face with that suffering more than others. So, so all praises, all praise, all honor, all glory. I want to take off running. I got two things that I want to read for y'all. I was meditating on this morning, and it's something that I think you're gonna find interesting when we talk about living our life. Hey, but it's one thing that I want to look at. I was looking at a post with our young king, the mighty Hebrew, and he was dealing with the issue of Yeshua uh, uh, being or sitting up under different people like Indian Buddhists or monks or whatnot, and I think that it shocks a lot of people when they see that. However, as somebody that I know that from the angle of being toward sinner, you want to show the people the the deepest levels of understanding specific things, and many times our believing New Testament brothers sometimes don't really understand. It looks like it's just the all-out war that's being waged against the one that people have come to believe in. But the reality is that those things are correct, and we don't run from that. And we can say, yes, he did. And that's why you have it written in books. You understand what I'm saying? But it don't deal with it from the standpoint of some type of idolatry, as many people might make it out to be. You see, Israel lost their inheritance and then had only become responsible for Israel. So you had one tribe that was set to the side for the sake of the whole nations, but their overall purpose was to become a blanket of instructors of God's righteousness to all of the nations in the entire world. Because of their failure, they would no longer be able to do that. You see? Now, when they start dealing with the Messiah, going to these things, King Rashard, if you still on the line, let me see. I'm going to see if I can go through that, because I want brothers and sisters to understand this before I even open this up, you know? So you can... Where is that at? Where, let me see. Let me see. Where is what chapter is that where the Messiah, after he finished his training or his education in Jerusalem? Where is that at? Let's see. I know it's in here. I wanna read that. I wanna read that. That's gotta be in his youth. So King Rashard, if you on there, I want to bring that up before I start this video. Okay, I got it. I got it. I got it. I think this is it. Okay. Let's see. No, that's not it. Let's see. Y'all just bear with me 1 second. That's not it right there. That's not it there, but it's close. Okay, let's see. That's that. Okay, y'all bear with me for 1 second. I wanted to open that up before I did, because I want y'all to see what's really happening. I don't think our Torah Center brothers see that we're not to try to persuade each other. Every man gonna believe what he believes. You understand what I'm saying? But when I hear certain things, you know what I mean? If they true, we're gonna show you that they true. What's being said is true, but it may not always go in the direction that is meant for people to receive. Chapter 6. That's where I was at too, King. Okay. All right, I got it. Okay, so I want brothers and sisters to understand that is that when you start talking about the mighty Hebrew, you talking about that's one of my young kings. That's some brothers that have been exposed to many times far more information than the average people. You know, you stack 50 people, 50 of the average people on top of each other, and then combine them together, and they still wouldn't be able to come up with the level of knowledge that our young king. And so, in this particular thing, that was dealing with the Messiah and how he had sat up under these particular people. And from a Torah-centered perspective, it seems as though, well, he was doing something false. But we tell people all the time is that the Messiah did indeed oppose Torah. He did indeed oppose it. He opposed it because it was superficial. It was fleshly. And men were doing fleshly things. But they could not make the necessary changes when it came to their spirit. You see, and there had to be balance. And so I want to show you, brothers and sisters, if in case any of you read the post, somebody like, man, get out of here with that mess. Don't get out of here with that mess. What he was saying was absolutely right. It's written in books, but it's also contained in the gospel of the Messiah. So that's what we're going to take a look at. We want our brothers and sisters, we want our brothers to understand that this is here too. It ain't something that's hiding up under no rock. We ain't hiding up under no rock. We have a vast understanding of the one that we say that we believe in as well. And we don't use our understanding of the one we say we believe in to make war with the ones that don't believe. They don't believe because they have in their whatever it is that they just don't. So let's see. Let's go back and we're gonna pick up reading. We're gonna commence the reading at the 6th lection of the Gospel of the Holy 12. Let's see. Okay. Verse 11 of lection 6. It says, "And Yeshua, after that he had finished his study of the law." Now, let's put a pin right there, because we want brothers and sisters to understand that the Messiah had to deal with the people that he came to restore first. And after he finished his study of the law that would come at the hands of Moses, which many times our forefathers rejected, he said after he finished his studying of the law, he went down again into Egypt, that he might learn the wisdom of the Egyptians, even as Moses did. You see, when we start talking about the Messiah, we're not hiding up under no rock. There are some things that transpired that don't seem to make sense to the Torah-centered believer, or the ones that live their life according to Torah. There's some things that don't seem to make sense to them. But what we're telling you is what don't make sense to you can be found written in. That's where we're going to come in. After he finished his study of the law, because he came to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, it says he then went down into Egypt to learn the wisdom of the pharaohs, even as Moses did. You see, people can lash out at Yeshua when we're dealing with just Torah only. But what they don't understand is that he is the second half of Moses. What Moses knew, he will also have to know as well. Now, brothers don't want to identify with the fact that Moses, in his understanding and his wisdom, was an Egyptian. Moses spoke the language of the Egyptian. Moses grew up as a child sitting at the feet of the pharaohs, which would be the grandson who would be standing to be one who would inherit the kingdom of the pharaohs. So he would have to learn and sit at the feet and learn the wisdom of the pharaohs. Now the Messiah coming after that, he would do likewise. He would come to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, but he also would be extended in his understanding. And we're going to see the reasons why. He left Jerusalem and went into Egypt to sit and learn the wisdom of the pharaohs. It says, as Moses did. Now, people say that they keeping the law of Moses, but what we understand is that Moses didn't have a law. The way we get the law of Moses comes by way of wisdom that Moses possessed, because God would give Moses things. But when the people reject what God gave Moses, Moses would now, according to his wisdom, put things in place that would cause the people to be able to be preserved without the Most High killing them for their rebellion. Now, for our Torah sinner brothers, our job is not to persuade anybody, you see. Because like I said before, Mighty Hebrew, that's my young king. You understand what I'm saying? It don't be that till the day I die. But we have many that get caught up in the crossfires of and don't understand these particular principles, and then allow disagreements or the differences of perspectives to hamper the issue of brotherhood, when no man knows the grand totality of only that the Most High know, but every man being given a portion of truth, and every man have to live according to the truth that he been given, even if our truth is unlike, truth of other people. So let's continue. It says, and after Yeshua at that time had finished his study of the law, he went down again into Egypt. What do they mean he went down again into Egypt? He was not no stranger to Egypt. You got to understand that Egypt was the place of preservation for the Messiah as a child. If it had not been for being able to go and intermingle with the Egyptians, his destruction would have came as a baby. So he spent half of his early childhood in Egypt. And that's why it says, and after he finished his training in Jerusalem, he now went down into Egypt again, because the angel had instructed Joseph to take the child and flee into Egypt for his preservation. Now he goes back to Egypt again. You see, when we start looking at things from a standpoint of outside of what our construct is or what we believe, we go into a great error, because the Messiah's job, what we're going to see, is not to just deal with the family of Israel. His job was to become a blanket of displaying the Father's righteousness to every nation that would be on the planet. But there had to be some common ground. And if you're going to be able to have dialogue and you're going to be able to reach people, it got to be some common ground. It's many of us just within the family of Israel that can't find the common ground. We can argue about everything up under the sun, but we refuse to shoot for the thing that gives us common ground. Now, if it's that messed up with just people that say that they're Israel and they can't find the common ground within the framework, and they all believe Yahuwah, they all believe the Torah, they all believe Yeshua, still can't find no common ground, then there is something terribly wrong with that. And if it's a fight like that within just one family, there is no way possible for that family to fulfill its overall purpose. Henceforth, you have the Messiah, which would be the second half of Moses, to bring to completion what Moses has started. So he went down into Egypt again. But the reason he went this time was different. The first time he went, it was about his life being preserved. His life was preserved, and he was cared for at the hands of the Egyptians. You know why? Look at Moses. His life was a pattern of Moses. He was the second half. Moses' life was preserved in Egypt, and Moses learned his wisdom at sitting at the feet of the pharaohs. Moses spoke Egyptian language. When the Most High revealed to Moses who he was, Moses couldn't even have an impact on his own people. You know why? Because mentally, and culturally, he was an Egyptian. That is why when Moses said, well, I can't speak, you sending me to the Hebrews, I can't speak, that didn't mean that he couldn't speak. It meant that he couldn't speak the dialect of the Hebrew language, because he grew up according to the customs of Egypt. And so God said, well, don't worry about it. I'll connect your brother to you. And your brother, not only do he speak Hebrew dialect, he also speak Egyptian dialect, because there have to be somebody to interpret the things that's coming from one group of people to the next. So he connected Aaron to him. You see? And Moses' wisdom would run through Aaron, and then Aaron would be the one to speak to the people. That's why the Bible say, and God spoke to Moses and told Moses and tell Aaron, and Aaron tell the people. See, it's a whole lot that goes into the scripture that's not written with ink and paper that the Spirit have to show you. And I'm saying to my brothers, when you're dealing with Torah, you got to understand who Moses is and where his wisdom came from, so that when you see the Messiah doing certain things, you can't classify that. You can do whatever you want, but it wouldn't be wise to classify it as idolatry when he's following in the footsteps of the one that had given you the Torah from the jump. So, y'all with me? I hope I ain't being too deep. He says, so after his study of the law, he went down to Egypt again that he might learn the wisdom of the Egyptians, even as Moses did. And going into the desert, he meditated and fasted and prayed and obtained the power of the holy name by which he wrought many miracles. Here's the next level of understanding. Because, see, you can't put the Messiah who was supposed to bring righteousness to every people on the planet, and it has to be that way according to the promise that was made to Abraham. I will make thee the father of many nations, and in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Well, there ain't but one way that all the families of the earth can have an opportunity to be exposed to the Most High's righteousness. That means that there have to be somebody that first can find the common ground. And there have to be somebody second that will not be isolated toward the people in the world. So he says, now after he finished learning the wisdom of the Egyptians, he now departed into the desert. He departed into the desert, and he meditated, and he fasted, and he prayed, and he obtained power of the holy name by which he wrought many miracles. Now watch this. Now watch this. Watch this. Y'all stay with me. Stay with me. Because everybody that believes in the Messiah, we have to understand his life so that we can be able to do what he did in this world. Now watch this, what we put. Watch what we put with this. This phone, come on. Watch what we put with this. So I got a book right over there. See, because many of our brothers, just the same way our Torah Center brothers, they are sealed with Torah Center belief, and there are many things they ain't been exposed to. If we could expose them to it, they will have a greater understanding, a greater comprehension. But as we said before, it's not our job to persuade anybody, for God gives every man a measure of truth wherever he's at. They live by that they know. Some people going to go on to higher levels of truth or whatnot. Now, it's the same way with many of our brothers that say that they're Christian brothers. See, when you start looking at the Bible can't be broken up and split up into different little sects. It has to be taken all together to deal with all of the people on the earth. You can't just use the Bible and deal with Christians by using Jesus' name. You can't just use the Bible and deal with Israelites by dealing with Torah. You can't just use the Bible dealing with Gentiles, looking at the Pauline epistles. You have to take the Bible in its fullness and look at it through the scope of God's perspective as it relates to all things that have life. Not just human beings, but animals and creation included in that. That's what we're trying to reach for. And we only got this one life in this world to do it. And right now, the death angel is out there, and he's snatching people at such a rapid pace. It's going to be a sad thing for us to get snatched out of this world and never came to the full understanding of what it was that we were supposed to be doing, unable to exemplify that righteousness to everybody that we came in contact with in this life, no matter what walk of life that they came from, whatever their culturalistic background was, it didn't matter. Whatever their religious ideology was, it didn't matter. And this is why we're dealing with this particular thing right here. But I'm about to show you something, all right? Okay, let me read this again. Y'all still with me? If I start getting too deep, somebody say something. Say that's too deep, or go back. Now, we see that he finished his study of the law. That means that Torah and everything was the first thing that he would deal with in Jerusalem. When he left Jerusalem, because where did the Torah come from? The Torah came from the hand of Moses. As God dealt with Moses, then the people got Torah, but they didn't get what God had originally gave them, because Moses broke the tablets of stone into two, and then Moses was permitted by the Most High to give them other laws that they might be preserved. All right, so he learned Torah first, then he left and he went down into Egypt, because Moses had his dwellings in the house of the pharaohs, and he spoke the language of an Egyptian, and he understood the wisdom of an Egyptian. And so the Messiah had to understand what he understood, because he is walking out the other half of Moses. Never yet he will become the complete embodiment of God's overall purpose. So now he have sat and he have learned the wisdom of the pharaohs that Moses knew. Okay. Now he goes into the desert. It says, and now he going into the desert, he meditated and he fasted and he prayed and he obtained the power of the holy name, by which he wrought many miracles. Now, when Moses came out of Egypt, where was the first place that he went? He went into the desert, what was known as the wilderness, where everything was barren. And Moses had prayed and conversed face to face with the Most High. And praying and conversing face to face with the Most High, Moses wrought many wonderful miracles through the staff that the Most High have gave him. Can you see the Messiah following in the footsteps? He said now he have left Pharaoh's house, just like Moses left Pharaoh's house and went into the wilderness. Now he goes into the desert to converse and to fast and to pray with the Most High, whereby he obtained the power of the holy name, even as Moses attained the power of the holy name. In the same way, Moses wrought many miracles by that holy name that the people understood not. He also would wrought many miracles by following in the footsteps of Moses. Now let me read something for you. This is what Moses have to say. Moses says, let's see. He said, Moses says, he allowed them certain things, but permitted them to be done only in the name of Yahweh, that by any means he might cut off one half of deeply ingrained evil, leaving the other half to be corrected by another at a time in the future by him, namely concerning whom Moses himself said, a Navi or a prophet will Yahweh your Elohim raise unto you in the future, whom you will hear even as you hear me. You will hear even as myself, according to all things that he will say unto you. Whosoever will not hear that prophet, his spirit will be cut off from his people. Many people, like many of our Torah sinner brothers, they will not hear that prophet because they do not understand that prophet walked in the footsteps that Moses walked in. But he would go even farther because everything that Moses had done was pertaining to fleshly things as it related to the law. He would go and extend even farther because he would transfer and he would deal with those things that were deeply ingrained into the hearts of people that physical laws could not extract. Can y'all see? Moses went into the desert. And he went into the desert. And he wrought many miracles, even as Moses did. Because Moses said, God gonna raise up a prophet, and this prophet gonna be just like me. He gonna be just like me. He's going to obtain the power of the holy name just like me. He's going to be able to speak things just like me. He's going to be able to wrought many miracles just like me. He's going to understand the wisdom of the pharaohs just like me. He's going to do all of these things just like me. He is going to find his preservation in Egypt just like me. When they floated me in the river in a basket up under the king's, up under the Pharaoh's decree to slay all the male babies, he said, I was preserved when my mother put me in a basket and floated me over there with the Egyptians. He said, but he gonna be preserved just like me. As the angel tell Joseph, take the child and flee into Egypt because Herod now seeks his life. And he was preserved in Egypt just like me. A prophet shall your God, your Elohim, raise unto you, and he shall be just like me. Him the people shall listen to just like me. Well, guess what? Many people didn't listen to Moses. So there will be many people that won't listen to him neither. But many people did listen to Moses. So there will be many people that will listen to him. But whatever it was that Moses received, he would receive the same thing. I don't want y'all to see that. Because I want y'all to understand that when certain things start coming out, you understand that nobody's just assaulting that. Sometimes the information is made available, but wisdom have to be coupled with the information in order to bring an understanding. So if you just look at things from a one-sided standpoint, you'll never get the fullness of the picture. So I understood what the things that were being said about this Yeshua and what his mission was and the things I understood. That it appeared that he was against Torah or that he was moved. I understood those things. But see, there are some things that other people don't understand. And unless they're able to hear it, then, but my thing is that we bring it forth so that we know that these things are true, so that we don't have to be shaken. Because we ain't hiding up under rocks. These things did happen. And as you see in the scripture, they did happen. But anything that you say about Yeshua, you have to say it about Moses, because Moses is a foreshadowing of the one that was coming. Now, that ain't going to cost you a dime, but that's enough power right there to hold all of you forever. So let's continue reading. It says, and for 7 years, he conversed with God face to face, and he learned the language of the birds and of the beasts, and he learned healing powers of the trees and of the herbs and of the flowers and of the hidden secrets of the precious stones, and he learned the motions of the sun and the moon and the stars, and the powers of the letters, and the mysteries of the square, and the circle, and the transmutation of things, and forms, and of numbers and signs. From thence, and that's all the things that he learned. Now look at Moses. What do you get in the beginning from? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And this was the evening and the morning of the first day. What do you get? That God said, let there be light. And then light came and darkness couldn't comprehend. Where do you get the understanding where the sun and the moon and the stars come in for seasons? Where do these things come from? These things were revealed to Moses. It is at the hand of Moses that you have the book of Genesis. You see, everything that Moses learned and understood about the creation creation, and God caused the waters to bring forth abundance of fish and whales and great whale, and God caused the fowl to come into, and God caused the creeping things and the beasts and the cattle and all, and God caused these things, man, to come into existence and then be able responsible. Where do you think these things came from? He would be the second half. He would be the prophet that the Most High would raise up, just likened to myself. Everything that Moses would know, he would know. And it tells you right here that everything that Moses had written down to give us a depiction of the things that transpired from what we call or know as the beginning, he would do the same thing for the Messiah. So it said and for 7 years he conversed with the Most High face to face. And then he learned the language of the birds and of the beasts and of the healing powers, of the trees and of the herbs and of the flowers, of the hidden secrets, the precious stones. And he learned the motions of the sun and the moon, and the mysteries of the stars, and the powers of letters, and the mysteries of the square and the circle, and the transmutation of things and forms, and of numbers and signs. You see, he learned all the things, just like Moses knew. But see, we have people that assault him, but they don't understand. Moses was a foreshadowing of the one that he prophesied was coming after him. He says, and after this, he returned back to Nazareth to visit his parents, and he taught there in Jerusalem as an accepted rabbi, even in the temple, nobody hindering him. Nobody was able to hinder him. Now, in some cases, people say because he moved around that he came back and he dealt with idolatry. But here is something different. According to his wisdom and his level of learning and his being in contact with the Spirit of the Most High, he was able to go back to his homeland and then teach. First it said he learned the law. Then he went to Egypt. Then he went to the desert. And then he learned all of these other things. And once he had learned all of those things, now he come back to Jerusalem and back to Nazareth and now begin to teach in the temples as an accepted rabbi. But see, he was accepted rabbi in the standpoint of what he knew and understood according to the law, but he was also rejected because of wisdom that came from outside of what those in Jerusalem had been previously exposed to. He said he taught as accepted rabbi, even in the temple, none hindering him. That meant there could nobody hinder him. Because not only was he well versed in the law of Moses, he also had the wisdom. And this is why Pharisees and scribes, you see it all the time in the Bible, say, and the Pharisees and scribes came tempting him. Well, see, they could not tempt him because not only was he versed in the law that they knew, he had a wisdom that far superseded what they knew because of his exposure to other things. He says, and after that time, after he went back and became accepted rabbi in his hometown teaching, he said after that, he left again. And this is where our brother was talking about. And we're glad to bring it forth and show him, yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Because it's in our books. It's in our books that shows you the history. So it's something that may not be understood on your end, but we understand it plainly. We ain't running and hiding from this. We're going to bring it out with you. Listen, it said after that time he taught as an accepted rabbi in Nazareth. It says, and after that time he went down into Assyria, and then into India, and then into Persia, and then into the land of the Chaldees, and he visited their temples and conversed with their priests and their wise men for many years, doing many wonderful works, healing the sick as he passed through their countries. You see, our young king ain't wrong about what he's saying. We understand these things fully. Because Israel had fallen down and forgot that their purpose was to blanket the whole world by becoming a kingdom of priests. But when they fall into sin, one tribe now has to be to the 12 tribes of Israel what the whole 12 tribes of Israel was supposed to be to the world. Henceforth would the Most High have to raise up one that was likened unto Moses to restore them back to their rightful responsibility. When you are Torah and you're Torah center and you're Torah this and you're Torah that, you only think about Israel. Lost sight of your purpose. When it's not about Israel. Israel was birthed into existence as the youngest nation to be a beacon of light and hope to all the other nations. And that prophecy came according to Genesis 9th chapter as he pronounced destiny upon the 3 sons of Noah. Cursed be Canaan, blessed be the Lord God of Shem, from who the Israelites' lineage would come through. They would be the ones responsible for coming down through the lineage of Shem and then manifesting the Most High's righteousness. With this lineage would come Abraham, and God would promise Abraham, I'll make you the father of many nations. Why? The 12 tribes of Israel had a mandate to become a kingdom of priests to all the nations to bring about the fulfillment of Abraham's promise, that in thee, and in your children shall all the people of the earth come to be able to understand God's righteousness by their instruction. Henceforth they shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all the people of the earth, for all the earth is mine, and they shall be unto me a kingdom of priests. We got to acknowledge that Israel failed. And because of their failure, you have prophecies like Isaiah chapter 49, verse 6. It is a light thing that I would use Yeshua, the prophesied servant, to raise up the house of Israel and restore the tribes of Jacob. I also will give him as an extension to be my salvation to the Gentiles, to the ends of the earth. This the Israelite couldn't do. This the Torah couldn't do. Because the Torah wasn't laws that were given to govern the whole entire world. The Torah were laws that were given to govern a fallen people. If Israel had never fallen, they wouldn't have to have these laws. I don't know if y'all hear what I'm saying. And I'm going through all of this preliminary stuff, and we ain't even got to the video. So maybe the video, maybe it come tomorrow. It says now, after that time he went into Assyria. Assyria is outside of Jerusalem. See, at this particular point right here, you see the Messiah, he ain't even came in contact with the fullness of his purpose. He ain't even came in full contact with the fullness of his purpose. He is just now learning and just now studying. He ain't even came to the place to where he's about to point men and this and that and the other. He just now going. He's in his training process because his job is not to just deal with Israel. His job is to raise up the lost tribes of Israel so that Israel can understand that their responsibility would be to go into all the world and teach all men and make disciples out of all nations, bidding them to observe, be observant of what everything that he would teach. He wouldn't just teach the Torah, because the Torah is only dealing with the children of Israel. It's the governing force, the governmental institutional force for the children of Israel. He wouldn't just teach that, because he had to teach his disciples now that they would be a kingdom of priests, that they would now make disciples out of all nations. That means that his training would put him in contact with the common ground to be able to understand these particular people and how they would deal with them. So when the disciples would move, they would move by way of the Spirit and according to the wisdom that comes from Yeshua, contact with these people. His contact with his people did not cause him to lose sight of what his mission was, as many brothers and sisters try to make it out to be. So let's keep reading, and we'll show you some things that separated him from the rest of them. It said, and at that time he went into Assyria, and then he went into India, and then he went into Persia, and then he went into the land of the Chaldeans, and then he visited in their temples and conversed with their priests and their wise men for many years. He had interaction He had dialogue. He found the common ground amongst the people to be able to deal with them, because he knew that he was the one that was supposed to come and raise them up. It didn't matter whether they was right or wrong, whether they was right or no, wrong. He had obtained the power of the holy name and were able to wrought miracles before the eyes of the people. And it would be those miracles that he would wrought before the eyes of the people that will cause them to be able to see that he was the true one that was spoken to come. Even though these people probably didn't even know Moses. It was not Moses' responsibility. Moses was confined to the children of Israel. And that's why I said that he would complete the second half. He would raise up a prophet like unto myself. All right, so let's go. Okay. He conversed with their wise men for many years, and he did. Here's what separated him from their wise men. And he did, doing many wonderful works, healing the sick as he passed through. You see? See, that's what separated him. Being able to obtain the power of the holy name and wrought miracles by that name. He could converse with those people and show himself as brothers to those people and show himself that, hey, you know what? You believe what you believe because you're of another culture. You're of another thing. But I am the true Messiah that's sent into the earth to bring you in contact with the righteousness of the one and true God. You got your books and I can converse with you and I can learn from you because that gives me common ground. Now I understand why you think the way that you think. But when it's time for you to be persuaded, I'm wroughting many miracles. I'm raising up your people. I'm raising up those that's sick around your place. I'm raising up all the people that you can't do nothing about. You can't heal them from their diseases. You can't open their blinded eye. He said, but I've attained the power of the holy name and I'm able to do all of these things. And these are the things that separated him. Separated him from them. And it goes even farther. He said, and he was healed and did many wonderful works and healed many as he passed through their cities. Wow. How did he do that? Oh, how do you do that? See, that's how Most High's righteousness is going to be manifested, not by what you say, but by what you do, by what people see. Verse 14, and the beast of the field had respect unto him. The birds of the air were in no fear of him, for he made them not afraid. Yeah, even the wild beast of the desert perceived the power of God in him and did him service, carrying him from one place to another. Let me show you something. You know why the birds, you know why they say the animals had respect unto them? Listen to what Moses said. Listen to what Moses said. When in the meantime, Moses, the faithful and wise steward, perceived that the vice of animal sacrifice to idols had been deeply ingrained into the people from their association with the Egyptians, and that the root of this evil could not be extracted from them, he allowed them to kill the animals, but he permitted it only to be done to Yahweh, but that by any means he might cut off one half of the deeply ingrained evil, leaving the other half to be corrected by another at a time in the future. You see, this Moses couldn't do. He couldn't get that out of the people. It brought that in there for a reason. It tells you what his full mission was, to bring balance and fullness back to the totality of creation as God intended. So he wasn't stopping with no religious ideology. He wasn't stopping with Israel because they had forgotten their purpose. He said, no, I'm going to raise Israel up first. Then I'm going to go and finish my training. I'm going to Egypt. I'm going in the desert to converse with the Most High. I'm going to fast. I'm going to learn what my mission is. He said, then I'm going back to Jerusalem. They're going to accept me as an accepted rabbi as I teach thee. He said, but I don't stop there. I'm leaving again. He said, once I get my Israelite brothers to understand just who I am, I'm going to leave again. And now I'm going into the places that they were made captives out of, because forgiveness has to be the embodiment of the Most High's grand purpose. He said, I'm going to the same Assyrians that had them as captives. I'm going to the Chaldeans. I'm going into India. I'm going into the far places of the east. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to converse. He said, but while I'm there, I'm doing this strategic, because everywhere that I go, I'm healing they lame, raising up they sick. I'm saving they people from the condition that they're in. That's the Messiah. You see? His mission was different. He said, and we don't leave this out. He said, because Moses realized that was the deeply ingrained evil in the people. They were not treating the creation, the animals. He said the beast of the field had respect unto him, and the birds were not afraid of him. He said all of the beasts and all the birds and the animals, they perceived that the power of God was in him, and they wasn't afraid of him. He said, and they did him service, carrying him from place to place. When he left Jerusalem, he left on the back of a camel. Then when he got into to Egypt, he left Egypt on the back of an elephant. And then on his way into Assyria, he left Egypt on his way into Assyria on the back of a lion. An alligator came and gave him a ride into India. Into Persia, he was on a leopard. All of these things, it said the animals had respect unto him, carrying him from one place to the other. And his purpose, he said, I will tell those men that follow me, Matthew chapter 28 verse 19, to go ye now into all the world, teaching men to observe the things that I have commanded, the things that I have taught you. He didn't just teach us one specific thing. What he teaches us puts us in contact with every people on the planet, no matter where they come from. It puts us in contact with their understanding, with their mindset, with their culturalistic background. But we have something that they don't have that is meant to cause them to marvel at the Most High's righteousness. That is the gift of the Spirit. The gift of the Spirit to be able to speak to a man in a language that does not belong to you. The gift of the Spirit to be able to lay hands on somebody and they'll get the gift of the Spirit to be able to shoot God's word out there with clarity and understand. The gift of the Spirit to be able to interpret the things in nature. The gift to be able to deal with the things in creation, to deal with the animals. The gift in the Spirit to make a man understand why he have sinned and fallen down, transgressed against the Most High. When there is an animal that is illy treated. So, yeah. Okay, so I did all of that just for that post. These things had to happen. And as we said before, we don't run from the fact that they happen. They're in there for a reason. But this is not idolatry. And we know that the Messiah that we believe in was crucified for becoming a breaker of what they call Torah law. That's what got him killed, and that's what got him murdered. And written in the books of those who have their roots in Torah, they write from the standpoint of the Messiah from this particular perspective. And by that perspective, they're absolutely right. Because in the mindset, it's as though Torah is the thing that God had gave to men. But the Messiah said, Torah could only deal with a man's flesh. Thou shalt not lie with a man as I lie with the one. Torah deal with the flesh, bid them to make fringes on the borders of their garments. Torah would deal with your flesh. It don't deal with your spirit. You see? So it had to be balanced. Torah law couldn't change a man's spirit. Question was asked, is it lawful? Our priests say. Let's go take a look at that. The video took a whole nother turn, but that's okay. It's going where the Most High means for it to go. Let's go back. Let's take a look at this. Let me show you how that some things deal with the flesh. Deal with the flesh. Let's see. Let's see. Let's see. Watch this here. See, this is what Torah was dealing with, and this is what the Messiah came to abolish, because Moses couldn't abolish it. So the Messiah came to abolish it. It says, this is what Torah is dealing with. And Yeshua was teaching his disciples in the outer court of the temple, and one of them said, Master, it is said by the priest. It is said by the priest. It is said by the priest that without shedding of blood, there is no remission of sin. Can then the blood offering of the law take away sin? You see, the blood offering of the law is a fleshly thing, but sin is a spiritual thing. So he's asking, can something that's done from the standpoint of fleshly or external thing, can that take away something that's a spiritual thing? That's the question that was asked. And Yeshua answered, no blood offering of a beast, a bird, or a man can take away sin. For how can the conscience be purged from sin? By the shedding of innocent blood. He said, nope, it will increase the condemnation. See that? This is what Torah law was dealing with. Fleshly act to try and fix a spiritual problem. So they asked him, because this is what they were up under. He said, well, let me ask you a question. The priests say that there can't be no forgiveness except some blood gets spilled. The Messiah said, what? He said, no. He said, how can it? He said, there is no shedding of the blood of a beast, a bird, or a man could take away sins. For my Christian brother, Jesus died for the sins of the world. He just said it. There is no blood that's spilled of anybody, a beast, a bird, or a man, that can take away another man's sin. And he can really tell you the reason why. He said, how can it purge the conscience? You see, the flesh is one thing, but the spirit convicts a man's conscience. Not no blood that you can spill of something else can't convict a man's conscience. So he said, but no, what it will do, it will increase your condemnation. Why will it increase your condemnation? Because God said, thou shalt not kill anything. But the priest came along and said, you should kill this animal for your sin. But that was false. And the Messiah came to make them understand that was false. And these are the things that got him killed. So it says, the priest indeed would receive such an offering as reconciliation of the worshipers for the trespasses against the law of Moses. He said the priest would indeed receive an offering for the trespasses of what they said was against the law of Moses. He said, but sins against the law of God, there can be no remission except it come by repentance and amendment. So you see, there is a line of distinction that run between what was called the commandment of Moses, the law of Moses, and the commandment of God. He said the priest did receive such offerings. We see in this book where it said that Moses seen that the sacrifice was deeply ingrained to these people and he couldn't get it out. So he permitted them to do it. And then they turned it into law. He said, and so the priest did accept the offering for the trespasses against the law of Moses and cause you to be reconciled back to the law of Moses. He said, but the law of God, there can be no remission except it come by repentance and amendment, which comes by conviction. He says, so the priest indeed receive such an offering as a reconciliation of the worshipers. Reconciliation of the worshipers of the worshipers for the trespasses against the law of Moses, but for the sins against the law of God, there can be no remission except by repentance and amendment. Is it not written in the prophets? Put your blood sacrifices and your burnt offerings and away with them, and cease from eating of flesh. For I spake not unto your fathers, nor commanded them when I brought them out of the land of Egypt concerning these things. But this thing I commanded thee. Now he said, is it not written? Is it not written in your prophets that the Most High tell you to put your burnt offerings and away with them? I spoke not to your fathers when I brought them out of Egypt. You see, Moses went and told God what his people was doing. God never told them anything. Moses is the one that permitted them to do sacrifices. Moses is the one that permitted. God never told them to do nothing. And ain't nobody gonna find nowhere in the Bible that when they came out of Egypt, God told them to do these things. And he takes them back to the prophets. And let's go to that prophet that he's talking about. That's going to be Jeremiah chapter 7. I know where it's at. Here you go. Verse 21. Thus said the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel. He said, is it not written in your prophets? So we're going to go back to the prophets and look to see what's written. He said, thus said the Lord God of Israel, put your burnt offerings and your sacrifices and go on and eat flesh. For I spake not unto your fathers, nor commanded them in the day that I brought them out of the land of Egypt concerning burnt offerings. But this thing I commanded them, saying, obey my voice, and I will be your God. And you shall be my people, and walk ye in all my ways that I have commanded you, that it may be well with you. But they hearken not, nor did they incline their ear, but they walked in the counsel and the imagination of their own evil heart, and they went backwards. Since the day that your forefathers came out of the land of Egypt until this day, I have sent you all my prophets to servants, rising up daily and sending them. And yet they hearken not unto me, nor incline their ear, but hardened their neck. And they did worse than their fathers. You see? So these are the things that got the Messiah. Make the Messiah seem like he was at odds with the Torah, because he was at odds with the Torah. He wanted people to understand how these people had got these laws and the things that they were doing. And after he finished his education and everything, it says, and all of the beasts had respect unto him, and the birds were not afraid of him, and they loved him so much that they carried him from one place to the other. So yep. Now let's look at verse 6. And what does the Eternal command you but to do justice, to love mercy, to walk humbly with your God? You see that? You see, that's spiritual. You can't sacrifice nothing. Our brother's still talking about eating lamb and Passover and this and that, the other. You know what? But God's saying, who told you to do this? Go on and eat your burnt offerings. Go on and put them to the test. But just know, when your forefathers came out of Egypt, I never told them nothing about no burnt offerings. I never told them nothing about, doing these things. You know what I'm saying? And our brothers need to have some sense and understand that if you're going to really go by Torah and you're going to really go by Levitical law, you understand that there had to be priests to do these things. Saul lost his kingdom because he tried to sacrifice on the altar. He tried to put himself in the position of a priest. You brothers, y'all got built-in altars. Your stove is an altar. Your barbecue pit is an altar, but you're not a priest. You don't know how to dissect everything you get. It's coming out of a grocery store. It's been sacrificed to the idol gods of this world. It have not been dissected properly. The fat ain't been separated properly. The blood ain't been put in the right place. It wasn't slaughtered at the temple. You didn't raise it from the time that it was first came out of his mother's womb. It didn't have no special type of life to where it got loved on as though it was a family member. You don't know whether it's the first fruit. You don't know whether it's the lamb or the thing that without blemish. You don't know any of those things. And you try to do these superficial things on the outside as a means, and then many people are getting deceived by these things. Many people are getting deceived by these things. And they try to justify it. But ain't nowhere in the world you can justify it. It's just point blank period. You cannot justify it. When the Bible speaks of so many different things, he that killeth an ox as though he killed a man. He that slays a lamb is as one that cuts off his best friend, his dog's neck. You see, it's too many things. It's too many different places to where these things are showing you. They that sanctify, they that try to justify themselves in the groves behind the trees, trying to justify yourself, eating swine's flesh. Well, you know, it say right here, we can eat anything. They that sanctify themselves in the groves behind the gardens, controlled by the appetite, eating swine's flesh and the abomination and the mouse. Well, you say, I don't eat no swine and I don't eat no mouse. Well, baby, you got to understand what the abomination is. When you look at Isaiah chapter 1 verse 11, he said, listen, when you come before me, don't bring no more vain oblations to me. Who told you that this is what I want? I don't want you killing my rams and killing my goats. Your hands are full of blood, and when you stretch forth your hands, I ain't even listening. I hide my face from your prayers. He said, your new moons and all your feast days, they're loathsome to me. I hate them. I cannot away with them. He said, I didn't tell you to do these things. And the Messiah making you understand that it wasn't for you to do. But our job ain't to persuade nobody. Our job is to deliver the word, and what people do with it is purely on them. You see? So that video right there, it took a turn and it went where the Most High wanted it to be. So I'll make this a series of 3 videos. There are 2 more videos coming. It's 9 o'clock right now. I'm not going to be able to stay up and do another video. Sweetie Pie going to have to be at work, but I don't know. I might try to go back across the street and pull it off again. So peace and blessings be on all of you. And we're going to, if y'all want to get ahead, we're going to be reading Lection 44. And we're going to be reading Lection 46. So if y'all want to get ahead, we're going to do 2 more videos. One of them going to be on Lection 44, and then one of them going to be on Lection 46. We're going to do 2 more videos, but I had to get that out the way because I don't want brothers and sisters being swayed. You need to know that a lot of those things that our brothers are teaching, according to these ancient books, they're absolutely true. But there are 2 sides of the truth. And in order for you to understand, you got to hear both sides. So that part about it looking like the Messiah was in idolatry, that part about him sitting up under Buddhist monks and Egyptians and all of that is true. But you got to hear the other side. You can either settle for that one side or you can hear the other side of it so that we can, you see what I'm saying? So, but it's what it is. It's what it is. So, yeah, that's right. We're going to do Lection 44 and Lection 46. So if any of you want to get ahead, you can get ahead and get out there out front. These things going to be dealing with real life. But I wanted to deal with that particularly. Shouts out to our kings. Should our young King Mighty Hebrew happen to stumble across this video, I thought that was a good article that he had read, backed up by the books and everything. And as I was reading it, my insides was leaping. But I know many of the Torah Center brothers was looking at it as though, oh, he just body slammed Yeshua. He just body slammed him and drop kicked him. But I was reading and I was like, man, that's cold. That's cold. He bringing them books forward. And I'm glad because it's another half that's written in the books of the one we say we believe in. This is not new information to us. And we can substantiate it as fact. But we're going to show you why it was like that. So, peace and blessings be upon all of you. And we'll come back at you again.